The morning mist clung to the training grounds like a thin veil as the sound of boots hitting gravel echoed across the compound. It was the first Joint Branch Combat Evaluation session held in over a decade. Soldiers from different units, backgrounds, and ranks were gathering for one purpose: to test their skills under the watchful eyes of military leadership. Among them stood a quiet woman with calm eyes, short dark hair, and a posture that spoke of decades of discipline. She wore no special markings, no insignias that set her apart. To most watching, she looked like a new recruit trying to blend in, someone who didn't talk much and kept her gaze low. But appearances are rarely accurate in places built on discipline and danger. Her real identity was known only to two people in the entire training facility. She was Lieutenant Commander Alina Reyes, a Navy SEAL with 20 years of service, hundreds of missions, and a reputation so respected that her file was often used as a model for excellence. But today she wasn't here as herself. She was here undercover, assigned to observe a growing issue within leadership ranks. Some recent reports had claimed that certain generals had become disconnected from ground-level combat realities, forgetting what true combat readiness looked like. Alina's mission was simple: participate in training as if she were a new transfer, evaluate the general's behavior, and report honestly on their performance. She didn't mind the anonymity. In fact, she preferred it. It gave her the freedom to watch, listen, and understand without the weight of her reputation shifting the atmosphere. But one person at the facility was destined to cross paths with her in a way none of them expected. General Marcus Hale, a man known equally for his strict discipline and his explosive temper, had arrived on the field that morning prepared to prove a point. He was a decorated soldier, a battlefield strategist, and someone who believed that toughness could only be forged through aggression. The younger troops respected him, though many whispered that he pushed too far. Hale didn't recognize Alina. Why would he? She had been operating in the shadows for most of her career. And so when his gaze swept across the recruits that morning, he saw only what he wanted to see: a group of inexperienced fighters needing to understand what real combat felt like. The session began with warm-ups, followed by drills that tested endurance, coordination, and situational awareness. Alina moved through them effortlessly but subtly, careful to appear competent without revealing her mastery. Her movements were smooth, efficient, almost graceful, but never flashy. The other trainees quickly began noticing her, whispering among themselves, wondering about the quiet woman who never tired, never complained, never missed a step. But Hale wasn't impressed. To him, she looked too calm, too steady. "You," he barked, pointing at her. "Step forward." The group turned, watching as Alina approached without hesitation. Her expression remained neutral. "What's your name, recruit?" he demanded. "Reyes, sir," she replied. "Reyes, huh," Hale muttered, circling her like a predator sizing up prey. "You think you're good. I think I'm prepared, sir." The answer irritated him. He wanted fear, hesitation, or at least a hint of doubt. But she gave him none. "Prepared," he repeated, stepping closer. "Let's see how prepared you really are." The general called for a sparring demonstration. Two instructors brought out protective gear, but Hale waved it off. "No pads. Real combat doesn't offer padding." A few soldiers exchanged nervous glances. They knew Hale fought hard, too hard. But no one dared speak. Alina simply nodded. Inside, she calculated the situation carefully. She didn't want to expose herself, but she also couldn't allow herself to be struck to the point of injury. She had a mission. The circle formed around them as Hale stepped into the center. He towered over her by almost a foot, his arms thick, muscles hardened from decades of training. He cracked his knuckles, ready to teach what he believed would be a humiliating lesson. "Defend yourself," he ordered. The air thickened. Hale struck first, a sharp jab aimed at her shoulder. She shifted her weight just slightly, letting the blow slide past her. Some recruits gasped, others leaned forward. Hale frowned. He attacked again, a sweeping motion meant to unbalance her. She sidestepped with effortless precision. "Stand still and fight," he growled. She didn't answer. Instead, she moved like water, fluid and adaptable, watching him without fear. That only angered him more. Hale suddenly launched a full strike, a forceful punch aimed directly at her head. The watching crowd braced, certain the recruit was about to get knocked out. But Alina's training, Her decades of instinct, activated instantly. She ducked beneath the punch with a movement so quick it looked unreal. She pivoted on her heel, stepped behind him, and tapped the back of his shoulder lightly with 2 fingers. The gesture was subtle, but anyone with real combat experience would know exactly what it meant. She'd just marked a kill point. Hale froze. A ripple of shock spread through the observing soldiers. "How did you?" Hale began, turning. Alina kept her posture ready but non-threatening. "You left yourself open, sir." Her voice was steady, respectful. But Hale didn't take the correction well. Embarrassment flooded his expression. A general had just been humbled in front of dozens of trainees. His pride refused to accept it. "Again," he demanded, breathing harder. She nodded politely. The second round began. He charged faster this time, mixing feints with real attacks, but Alina read his movements like a book. To her, every shift of his foot, every tightening of his jaw, every micro-motion telegraphed his next move. She countered with soft parries, gentle redirections, never once hitting him, only guiding him off balance with the kind of skill that came from thousands of hours of battlefield practice. Sweat poured down Hale's face as frustration built. He swung wide, far too wide, and she weaved beneath his arm, stepping around him as easily as stepping around a doorway. She could have ended the match at least a dozen times. But she didn't. She didn't want to win. She wanted to finish the assignment without revealing too much. Hale, however, was blind with anger. He roared as he lunged, throwing a heavy punch toward her ribs. This time she couldn't dodge entirely. If she did, he might injure himself with the force. Instead she blocked, absorbing the impact. The shockwave of the strike ran up her arm, but her training allowed her to handle it. Hale's eyes widened when he felt the resistance in her arm. It wasn't the block of a recruit. It was the block of a warrior. Something sparked in his mind. A suspicion, a realization, but he pushed it aside, refusing to accept what he felt. He stepped back, breathing heavily. "Who trained you?" he demanded. "Many people, sir," Alina answered. It wasn't a lie. He stared at her, searching for weakness. He found none. Again, he ordered. "Sir," one of the captains interjected. "Maybe we should," I said again. Hale barked. The recruits tensed. Alina inhaled slowly. This couldn't continue. So when Hale lunged again, she decided to end it, but gently. He threw a punch aimed at her jaw. She stepped inward, closer than he expected, letting his momentum carry him off balance. With a swift, controlled motion, she placed her palm against his chest and pushed. Lightly, but applied pressure at the perfect angle. The general's body twisted, his legs tangled beneath him, and he hit the ground with a heavy thud. Gasps erupted through the entire circle. Hale lay on his back, staring up at the sky, dazed. Alina stepped back, offering him space, her posture respectful and composed. Silence blanketed the field. Finally Hale sat up, breathing hard, his ego bruised but his mind finally beginning to recognize the truth. Who are you?" he asked, bewildered. Alina hesitated. She didn't want to reveal herself too soon, but the situation had escalated far beyond what she planned. Before she could answer, Admiral Strickland, the only man who knew about her mission, approached the training circle. His voice boomed across the field. "General Hale, meet Lieutenant Commander Alina Reyes." A wave of shock swept through the recruits like an earthquake. Strickland continued, 20-year Navy SEAL veteran, leader of multiple Black Ops missions, and one of the most skilled close-quarters combatants this military has ever seen. Hale's jaw slackened. His face turned pale. The general slowly rose to his feet, staring at Alina with newfound understanding. The anger evaporated from him, replaced by respect and something bordering on awe. "Why wasn't I informed?" he asked, glancing between Alina and Strickland. "Because we needed to evaluate how you handle soldiers who aren't afraid of you," Strickland replied firmly. Hale swallowed hard. The recruits stood frozen, watching the exchange. Alina spoke softly. "Sir, I didn't mean to embarrass you." "You didn't," Hale said quietly but sincerely. "I embarrassed myself." The tension dissolved into a quiet, reflective silence as everyone processed what had happened. Hale took a breath, then addressed the entire group. "Listen closely," he said. "Today you witnessed something rare. A true warrior doesn't need to shout, boast, or bully. Reyes here just proved that strength comes from discipline, real experience, and humility. Remember her example. Alina gave a modest nod. The session continued, but everything had changed. The recruits now followed her with awe, asking for guidance, studying her techniques. Hale, too, approached her afterward, more respectfully than anyone expected. Reyes, he said, I owe you an apology. You don't owe me anything, sir, she replied, her voice calm. We're all here to learn. Hale shook his head. You taught me more in 10 minutes than I've learned in 10 years. She smiled, a rare small smile that softened her usually serious face. Sometimes the battlefield teaches lessons we forget once we leave it behind, she said. For the rest of the day, Hale and Alina worked together, demonstrating combat movements and strategies for the trainees. The atmosphere shifted from intimidation to genuine learning. Recruits asked questions, laughed, practiced, and improved rapidly. Later that evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills and the shadows stretched long across the base, Alina stood by the edge of the field watching the soldiers clean up. One young recruit approached her hesitantly. Ma'am, he said, I've never seen anyone fight like that. How do you stay so calm? Alina looked at him thoughtfully. Calm doesn't come from being fearless, she said. It comes from understanding fear. Controlling it. When you've faced enough danger in life, you stop fearing the next moment and start understanding it. The recruit nodded as if receiving the wisdom of a lifetime. Thank you, ma'am. As he walked off, Alina took a deep breath, letting the cool air settle into her lungs. She had completed her mission, but she didn't feel triumphant. Instead, she felt hopeful. Sometimes the military needed reminders of humility, respect, and the importance of true skill over showmanship. General Hale had learned that lesson. And because of that, an entire group of young soldiers would grow stronger, wiser, and more honorable. Before leaving the field, Alina looked toward the camera crew that had been recording certain parts of the training for documentation purposes. She stepped into frame and said with a calm but confident voice, if you want more real warrior stories, stories of courage, discipline, and growth, make sure you subscribe to Bravo Warrior Stories. These moments matter. These lessons matter. And there are many more to share. She walked away, her boots crunching softly over gravel, the fading light casting a long shadow behind her, a shadow of a warrior who didn't need recognition to be great. Just quiet strength, discipline, and the heart of someone who had given everything for her country. The next day brought new drills and new lessons, but something had undeniably changed. Hale had softened, not in strength, but in outlook. He moved among the trainees with a more thoughtful approach, offering guidance without aggression. Alina observed from a distance, appreciating the transformation. Word of the spar had spread around the base, but no wild rumors followed. Instead, soldiers spoke with admiration about a general who took a fall and came back wiser. One afternoon, Hale approached Alina while she was reviewing reports. Reyes, he said, I used to think toughness meant never backing down. Never showing weakness. Alina closed the file, and now, Hale took a seat beside her. Now I realize real toughness is accepting when someone else is better, and learning from them. She nodded. That's growth, sir. You could have humiliated me, Hale said. Instead, you taught me. Alina shook her head. I didn't teach anything. You were ready to learn. Hale chuckled softly. Still, thank you. She offered a small smile. Any time. Over the next week, they worked closely together, blending their experiences to create improved training modules for the recruits. Hale provided leadership insights, strategic knowledge, and a renewed sense of humility. Alina contributed advanced combat expertise, psychological understanding, and a quiet but powerful presence that inspired everyone. On the final day of the program, as they gathered for closing remarks, Alina addressed the group. What makes a warrior extraordinary isn't skill alone, she began. It's the ability to grow, adapt, and rise above pride. Even the strongest among us can learn. Even the most experienced can change. She glanced at Hale, who nodded respectfully. That's what makes us undefeatable, she continued. Not muscles, not rank, but character. The recruits applauded, many visibly moved. As the crowd dispersed, Alina stepped once more toward the camera crew filming the final recap. Her voice remained steady, honest, and full of quiet pride. If you've been inspired by this journey and want to hear more stories about real warriors, their struggles, and their victories, don't forget to subscribe to Bravo Warrior Stories. Your support helps these stories reach the world. She paused for a moment, letting the words settle. And remember, strength means nothing without humility. The recording concluded, marking the end of one chapter and the beginning of many more. And for Lieutenant Commander Alina Reyes, the mission was complete, not just the official one, but the deeper mission of reminding others what true leadership looks like. Long after the training program ended, the story of the general who tried to strike a recruit, only to discover she was a legendary SEAL, became more than a tale. It became a lesson, a reminder, a testament to the idea that the greatest warriors often walk quietly, carry deep wisdom, and fight not to show strength, but to build it in others.